Hello, everyone. The clip you're about to hear is from one of our exclusive Patreon episodes on a recent horror release, and just like all of our other episodes, it might include major spoilers for said horror release, so don't listen to it if you haven't already seen it. You've officially been warned. And if you'd like to hear the full episode, just head on over to patreon.com/horrorqueers and subscribe today. Without further ado, here is your exclusive Patreon clip. I say this as someone who hasn't suffered, like I've said before, from mental illness or from depression or anxiety. I've had depressive episodes. I've had depressive phases, but I don't struggle with clinical depression on a daily basis. But even just watching a movie like this, or Hereditary, or The Babadook, and I'm like, it looks scary to me. I don't want to live with that. And I do think it's just a different type of scary, right? It's honestly more real than, Masked Man chasing you around the woods, which, don't get me wrong, I love those movies as well. It's just a different type of scary that people are going in expecting. And I think with this one, people were like, oh, it's going to be like a ghost movie or something of some sort.
Right.
The trailer was very, very much giving off, alternate dimensions, all parallel realities and things like that, which I was actually kind of happy to see it wasn't really the case.
Yeah, it is, and it isn't. And, folks, I'm going to make another plug for a former guest. So Megan Navarro wrote a pretty fascinating piece outlining some of the genesis of this project, because you mentioned it's an original IP, but originally they had proposed this as a Hellraiser film. And the studios were basically like, no, we're not interested in this. And so they tweaked it. And that's why you get some of the iconography that looks like a tortured figurine. That's why you get a kind of suggestion of another dimension, or mazes and trapping demons and that kind of stuff. It's like, oh yeah, there's a lot of Hellraiser in here.
I did read that piece as well, because the idea was, oh, what if we do Hellraiser because it's Julia's movie? And so we're gonna keep it in Julia's POV, but make Julia a sympathetic character, So you have Owen in the Night House, representative of Frank in Hellraiser, which I thought that was awesome. And that's the thing too, right? The whole reverse house, I'm still a little murky on the details as to how, a house across the lake that's mirroring the floor plan is somehow going to trick this entity into doing whatever, blah, 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 blah. But I was like, you know what? It's probably in those books she found. I'm not going to question it too much.
Yeah, I have noticed that there's quite a few reviews. They don't suggest that the film is badly written in terms of a screenplay, but they do say it would have been nice to have had just a little bit more explanation. The storytelling almost seems a little too meandering or open to interpretation. And it's like, well, how exactly was he doing some of this stuff? And I toggle back and forth. Sometimes I think it's better to just leave it. We can figure it out, but we don't know the exact details. And here I wonder if maybe some people did need just a bit more.
And see, though, for me, I think it's vital that we don't get that information, because we are constantly in Rebecca Hall's POV. We know exactly as much as she knows the entire time. And so I guess you could have it to where, oh, she does find out. She figures out what's happening, blah, blah, blah. We have this whole expository 5-minute scene where she tells her friend, who is not Kristen Bell, to, all the stuff that her husband's doing. And I'm like, but while that may be satisfying from a narrative standpoint to be like, okay, cool, I understand what's going on now, it kills the mystery, and I also think it kills the scares, because I think a lot of the mood and the horror from this piece comes from not knowing what's going on, and we are never one step ahead of our protagonist for this movie's entire runtime. We are constantly toe-to-toe with her.
Yeah, that is true. And that's often a rarity when it comes to these kinds of mysterious narratives. Oftentimes we'll either be able to figure it out because it's just so obvious that we end up one step ahead of the character, or they feel the need to stop and say, let's make sure we haven't lost the audience, and just give them a bit more exposition. Because usually when you see a best friend in a film like this, it's like, okay, well, at some point they're going to have drinks so that we can talk about everything. And that does happen here, but it's so early in the film that even though there is relevant exposition happening there, it's not like, hey, audience, are you too dumb to figure it out?
Oh, my mind was going all over the place in this movie, to the point where I was like, oh my god, the friend was fucking the husband at one point.
Oh my god, I totally thought that the friend was fucking the husband. And then she starts discovering pictures of brunettes, and I thought, okay, no.
And how nice is it to have a good female friend that just stays the female friend?
Female friendships? What?
It doesn't feel superfluous to the plot?
No, it's actually instrumental, even though, it's Rebecca Hall's movie. Like, let's not dance around it. But
for sure.
This best friend actually does still play part. Like, she's in the motherfucking climax. It's impressive.
She saves our protagonist. I mean, kind of. Like, it's her voice that snaps her out of her trance. And I know I said, like, not Kristen Bell. In my head, I was like, oh, it's not Brea Grant either, because they look very similar. But it's apparently an actress from the TV show Barry, and I've never seen that show. So the whole time I was like, this woman looks so familiar, and I don't know her from a single thing.
Right. And I was like, not Julie Benz, but you know what? She's a woman of 1,000 faces, apparently.
Nevertheless, I actually really like this actress. But you are right. This is Rebecca Hall's movie, and oh man. She doesn't get like a showcase moment like the dinner table scene in Hereditary, right? But she gets so many little things. And like, to start off is that damn teacher-parent conference, like when that woman barged into her room.
I loved it.
It was late in the afternoon when the professor and I took our way towards the east, whence I knew Jonathan was coming.
Jonathan Harker has asked me to note this, as he says he is hardly equal to the task, and he wants an exact record kept.
Dear Madam Mina, I have read your husband's so wonderful diary. Strange and terrible as it is true. I will pledge my life on it.
God preserve my sanity, for to this I am reduced. Safety and the assurance of safety are things of the past.
I am in hopes that I shall see more of you at Castle Dracula.
Listen to Regarding Dracula wherever you listen to podcasts, or find us online at bloody.fm.